Brutality versus good technique. This is literally the comment that keeps popping up when you look at Tiaan versus Carlos' video on Hook Grip's Instagram. One seems to be a little bit more visually appealing than the other one, and even those who don't necessarily understand the sport of weightlifting will feel free to comment on this, saying that although strong, Carlos needs to work on his technique. But what is good technique? Is good technique someone who has really high efficiency? So someone that like their squat to clean and jerk ratio is relatively close together? Is it defined as someone that can lift the most amount of weight safely? Or is it defined as something that is just literally visually appealing to the eye? We know what good technique looks like, and it is a yes or a no factor. The difficult part with all of these three things is when we compare these two lifters, Carlos and Tiaan, they both squat pretty similar weights. Yes, Tiaan makes it look a little bit easier, but if they both squat similar weights and they're both clean and jerking similar clean and jerk weights, would that not then mean that one has figured out a technique that works really efficiently for him and one has worked out a technique that worked really efficiently for him? Because when we say good and bad, the argument should then mean the person that has the better technique, if they've got similar strengths, should win hands down every single time. But in the upcoming World Championships battle, I don't think it's going to be that way. I don't necessarily think that just because Tiaan has more visually appealing technique, he's going to win. The argument for what is good technique, if we look at efficiency, one of my favorite lifters to watch who is just visually appealing and makes lifts look phenomenal is Victor Getz. He is someone that I think he clean and jerked within 10 kilos of his best front squat, but he could just never grow his front squat enough to compete with some of the big dogs in his weight class. Although he was top 10 and although he was still a world level lifter, he himself said on his Instagram video that he just could not front squat enough weight to build his strength up. So unfortunately in the sport of weightlifting, it's not the best mover who ends up winning. When we look at the safety argument, it's not as simple as that. If you've ever coached for a long period of time, you've probably seen people hurt themselves with what is quote unquote good technique, and you've probably seen people that have had average technique or less than ideal technique never hurt themselves, and they've trained for years and years. And you'll hear people say, it's only a matter of time before it catches up to them, and it just never seems to catch up to them. So the safety argument is a really difficult one to talk, especially when we're just talking about elite level lifters, because for them, it's whoever lifts the most weight is the winner. And it gets to the old saying of it's only bad technique until somebody wins a gold medal and then everybody's trying to copy it. So what can we learn when we look at these two individual lifters? We have somebody who, Tiaan is stunning to watch from a visually perspective, but Carlos is equally as appealing to watch because he's lifting these astronomical weights. He's incredibly young and he's doing it with an unorthodox technique. But who has made the rules for good versus bad technique? I know that biomechanics plays a role, and I know levers play a role, I know all that type of stuff. But if you've got two lifters who are built completely differently, then why wouldn't they look slightly different when they lift? Tiaan is more compact, he's got shorter levers, he's got a longer torso. Carlos is longer, he's lankier, probably closer to what myself is and what other people are. So when we try to fit ourselves, everybody, the whole world, into one model on a barbell that is fixed to the ground at a similar height, even though I have longer shins to knees to femurs to all that type of stuff, it starts to not necessarily make too much sense. How I would combat this, or how I help other coaches, help athletes figure this out is, we have a model. I have a model. I have what I roughly want most people to fit into. But then we have people that slowly work their way on the outside of that, and they have their technique that suits their body. Now, if everyone starts with a very similar model, over time, what you'll probably find is that if someone's got a little bit longer levers, their hips rise a little bit quicker than those that have shorter levers. If somebody has stronger back to stronger legs, their low back's probably going to do a little bit more work than their legs would do. That doesn't mean that we just go, we let the body to figure it out. As coaches, we have to start with something. But as someone's been lifting for a number of years, I think a really easy way to look at it is to define what good technique is a much simpler term. And a term that I picked up from a mentor of mine is lifting dynamically in balance. And when you first hear this, it's kind of confusing. It's like, that's oversimplified, it doesn't make too much sense. But when you're watching a lift happen in front of you and the bar's coming in nice and closely, they explode really dynamically, and then through that transition, it's not pushed forward, but it's pushed up. It's kept really close. When they catch, the bar is over the dead center of the foot. It's in a really nice balanced position, and they stand it up. Well, that starts to make it a little bit simpler. So we have our model that most people fit into. We have a definition of what good technique is. And now our job as a coach or as the athlete is to build athleticism and to build strength. So I'll put it to you guys. Does Carlos have bad technique? Where do we go wrong when we're coaching the weightlifting movements? Cheers, guys.